don't think she took me serious at first, so I'd opened the book bag and showed her the pistol that was in there. So then she gives me everything. So then I'm thinking, damn, this ain't that much money. I know there's more money down bottom, but I got to worry about dye packs and stuff like that. But already I can hear the sirens coming, so I'm like, I got to get out of here.
Lee Morris grew up in Duchess County, New York, where a childhood marked by his parents' divorce set him on a troubled path. After moving to Florida with his dad, he fell in with the wrong crowd, started robbing houses, and eventually escalated to robbing a bank. That decision landed him 4 brutal years in a Florida youthful offender prison. But even after his release, Lee's life spiraled again, and 16 years later, he found himself back behind bars, this time for drugs. Today, Lee is sharing his powerful story of survival, second chances, and how he finally turned his life around after prison. Lee, welcome to Locked In, man. You're literally a town over from us.
Yeah.
Appreciate you so much for reaching out and coming on. How do we get connected? Did someone introduce us? Or?
No, I don't know what it was. I'm on social media, and I'm always so bored with it. Like, it's the same content over and over, and I came across you. I'm like, damn, this dude is so awesome. This is so refreshing. Like, this is what I'm interested in. I know 100 people that are interested all in the same stuff, so I'm like, damn, this is great. And then I started to see, like, the people that are following you and stuff on social media. I'm like, wait a second, this dude's got to be local. So I'm like, dang, I got to reach out to him. So
and now here we are a couple days later.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that so much, man. It really
no,
means the world.
It's great. It is. It's like refreshing and needed because I'm like gotten where I like can't stand social media anymore. So like to see this content is really cool. So.
You know, it's real stories from real people.
Yeah.
And I really like the local ones too because it pushes it out locally where it's like if it makes people think differently about those that have been incarcerated because I know how people look at me locally.
Yeah.
I know it's different kind of like in the country now, but locally people are just so weird when it comes
bad.
to people. Yeah.
I know. It's like, and especially you because everybody knew about your situation. You know what I mean? I wasn't around at that time. I was in Florida, but I've asked a few people, oh, yeah, I know that dude. Like, oh, all right.
Yeah, and if you asked 10 different people from this area, each one of them is going to say a totally different thing.
Story, yeah.
And they have no idea because they were never involved, you know?
Exactly.
I think the most important facts are, like, I'm almost done paying the restitution.
No, I thought that was great.
Off. Thank
to
you.
me, that was, actually, that was the first thing I saw. That was like, that you paid almost all the restitution. I'm like, dang, dude, that's a stand-up, dude. That's good.
I feel like that's the only way to clear my name.
Yeah,
you know, that's what it's going to take to like.
I
really
think a lot of
it.
people will be like, you know, just see that as like such a good positive thing. So.
I appreciate it, but enough about me. Let's get into you. Where'd you grow
up? So basically, all my family. I was born in Indianapolis, but that's all my family's from Duchess County, New York, around the Poughkeepsie area. And for whatever reason, we went down to Indianapolis. My grandma, that's where she was raised, and I think that's why we were there. And I just happened to be born there. And within a year, I think we were back in Duchess County. I grew up there and moved. Actually, I had gotten in trouble when I was like probably 11 or 12 in school. All types of stuff happened, and back then, of course, there's like no cell phones or nothing. My mom's a single mom, so she's working constantly. There's all these like cops and the school trying to call her and get a hold of her. Nobody can get a hold of her, so they placed me on what it's called New York has a PINS program, Persons in Need of Supervision, and it's like through the family court in New York. So they placed me on that, and then basically only person they could get a hold of was my dad. So they told him that if I moved in with him, that they would take me off the PINS program and, you know, pretty much everything that had happened, you know, would go away. Which probably wasn't the best thing to happen for me because my dad's him and me are like the black sheep of the family where he's like kind of maybe a little off the chain. So that probably wasn't the best thing, but within a year, he moved to Florida, and I went with him. And, but so basically, you know, up until I was 12, was in like the Duchess County area. And then I was in Florida till about, I was like 30 years old. So
Were your parents split your entire life?
yeah, I have no memories of them The only one memory I have of them together was my dad coming around. He was like harassing my mom, and she punched him in his nose, and him bleeding all over the place. And that's the only memory I have of them two together. So no, they were always separated.
Did you have a lot of siblings?
Two brothers. Yeah, two older brothers. I was the youngest, and they're like completely different than me. You know, my oldest brother, he actually had moved out of my mom's when he was like 15, and he lived with my dad. But it didn't turn out bad for him. He ended up moving in with my grandparents, and they kind of raised him. Both of them are like extremely successful. One's in L.A., one is in Connecticut. He's got like Tonys and ESPYs and all this stuff doing for like ESPN and stuff. So
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah, it's really cool. So
How do you think your parents would describe you as a kid back then? If we asked each one of them.
I think about that often, and some like, dang, I don't know. Like, I think I was extremely quiet and like an introvert. I didn't talk very much. My mom said, even when I was in the crib, like I wouldn't cry, wouldn't do nothing. Like they'd have to always go in there and check on me to make sure I was still okay, alive. But I think about that often, and I really don't know. But see, I started getting in trouble at an early age, so they probably thought I was definitely, a troubled young dude for sure. And I'm sure they blamed themselves. You know what I mean? It was rough growing up, and having no money and it's all that stuff. So,
Do you think the no money aspect makes a big difference in how you grow up versus getting in trouble and not getting in trouble?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. I mean, of course, there's people I think that grow up with money and maybe they like take things for granted and they do things out of rebellion or attention from their parents. But I think definitely growing up in poverty and you grow up in your environment, you're kind of a product of your environment. You know what I mean? Like, I definitely I believe that.
Were you teased because of your poverty?
No, because I feel like everybody in that area kind of was like that. And you know what? No, I don't think I was. Because, it's weird. Like, one day I would wear, like, a sweatshirt and something, and then, like, the next day I'd wear it inside out. And, like, nobody ever said anything. And then, like, my stepsister would, wear the same clothes, like, 3 or 4 days later. I might wear something that she had or something. But, like, I was never teased or anything like that.
At the time, did that all feel normal to you, or did you feel like
It did. It felt normal. It did. Like, it's not until, like, I had my own kid that I realized, like, the difference of, like, them just expecting everything and wanting everything, and you thinking, like, damn, like, and school clothes, any of that was, like, that really didn't happen, you know what I mean? I remember getting a pair of, like, my dad bought me a pair of British Knights one year, and I was like, tsh. And I was like, I'm not wearing these, you know what I mean? I took that for granted too, I guess, so.
If there was one thing you could change about your childhood, what would that be?
I don't know if I would really change anything, to tell you the truth. I guess more I wouldn't want my mom to have struggled so bad. You know what I mean? Like, she was constantly working, and she was working 2 or 3 jobs. So that meant that there's no supervision. You know what I mean? There was nobody around. I could go do whatever I wanted. My oldest brother, he wasn't there. He was already living, with my dad or my grandparents. My middle brother, all I saw was the back of him at his desk. Like, he was heavy in the school. He's like class president and, like, extremely smart. Ended up winning all these scholarships, going to, Oxford University in England. And, like, he just went one way and I went a different way. You know what I mean? Getting into all types of trouble. And, like, also with my kid, like, my kid just turned 13. So I realized, like, damn, like, she's so innocent. And for 2 years before that, I'd already been, like, smoking weed, having sex with chicks. I had a gun. I had got caught with a gun in school, and the principal took it from me, put it in his desk, and at the end of the day, I went and got it back from him and took it and went home with it. So
That was in Florida?
No, that was in Wappingers, whatever, Van Wyck.
Was that just
middle school?
Was that normal at the time?
At the time, yeah.
Because that's something that would never
Never
happen
happened.
today.
No, never. So.
So do you think that kind of enabled bad behavior? Or?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now, if you lived with your dad first instead of your mom, do you think it would have been a different outcome?
No, probably not, because I don't think so. Because even though he was like probably he didn't have to work as much as my mom did, and he was around, he was extremely lenient on what I did. Because when we went to Florida, like, I didn't really have any rules or maybe rules, but I didn't. I just did what I wanted to do, and like I might be 15, and like I always worked. I started working when I was like 13. Doing tile, all types of stuff. I was a hibachi chef, like on the grill at like 15, and he'd call me up there at work, be like, "Oh, I just found 10 guns in your room, and they're loaded," and like pissed off, screaming at me, and he would get physical too. You know what I mean? Sometimes, but he even though he was still lenient, you know what I mean? I would still pretty much do whatever I wanted.
What was your fascination with guns?
I guess the power, and especially at such a young age. And though, even though, like I said, maybe I didn't get bullied, but I wasn't comfortable in who I was. And like, I don't know if I was depressed at that time too, maybe. But, I don't know. The guns, just something about them. Like, how dangerous they can be and how powerful they are and how much like importance they really do hold if you don't, do it the right way. And tell you the truth, I remember I was, I think it was like 14 or 15. We were getting ready to go to school. Thank God my stepmom had just already left. I had this new pistol. It was a revolver. And I'm sitting on my bed, and I think there was no bullet, but there was one, and it was 2 spots away. But when you pull the hammer back, it goes over one spot. And I shot it, and it went off and right into the wall, and my stepsister's right on the other side in the other room, same level with her. I'm like, oh man, I just killed my stepsister. And thank God it had hit one of the studs. And I took a dime, put it in there, put some toothpaste, and covered it up. And my dad never saw it. I'm like, oh my God. And ever since then, I'm like, you got to respect guns because you never know what might happen.
Now, were these guns you were buying or getting for
Nah,
free?
stealing. We weren't going to school every day. We're going and basically robbing houses. Me and like 2 of my buddies, one of them that had a car, probably just turned 16 or something. So instead of going to school, just going and hitting houses.
And this is in Florida now.
This is all in Florida. Yep.
Okay. Is this like a gang you're running with, or just a crew?
Nah,
of friends?
just my buddies. Florida's kind of different as far as not now. It's full of gangs now, but at the time it wasn't like it is up here. Or it is now. There really wasn't any gangs. It was more like neighborhood, cliques. I would say at that time. So just buddies in my neighborhood. I mean, I had a lot of buddies, a lot of people in my age in the neighborhood that were all, kind of doing the same thing. Although I feel like because I was from New York and where I was from, like maybe I was a little more advanced as far as, the things I was doing. I was 12. They probably weren't doing till they were like 16, 17. You know what I mean? So I might have been the aggressor, like the person in their lives that maybe steered them in the wrong direction, Do
you think going to Florida was like a trigger to advance to this new streak of crimes, robbing houses, breaking in?
I think so. Florida is, I mean, all you got to do is like listen to the news. Like they got Florida man, you know what I mean? Like Florida is like, it's like a whole nother country, basically. It's like a third world country, even though it's so nice, so beautiful. But it's like, it's so different too. You could be around all these $1 million houses and go over 2 blocks and like be in the hood, like in the, like a real rough spot. So Florida's just, it's a strange spot. I don't know. And I couldn't tell you what it is, like why it is the way it is. You know what I mean? But yeah, Florida is like, it's a whole different world.
How long were you guys hitting houses for?
Probably like 2 or 3 years, because then it got to more like maybe we hit somebody's house that had a couple ounces of meth or coke or something like that. So then we, start selling drugs or start, selling the guns that we got. And then basically I had buddies that were hitting banks and were getting away with it. So I'm like, oh, then that was like the next, advance. Like, oh, I got to do that. But, to go in and lay it down a bank, you got to have a few people with you, you know what I mean? And I couldn't get anybody to want to go with me. Like nobody's going with me. So I think eventually at some point I ended up in Tallahassee, Florida. My girlfriend at the time that I had been with for years, basically living off and on at her house. And I think about that too. Like her parents loved me and were such good people, but then they had money. Like they'd let me live there, and we'd go on vacations all the time, or like they'd go on vacation and I'd have the house with like 6 different cars and stuff. Like I would just, kind of had free reign of what I was doing at like, 15, 16. But she was a really smart, good girl, and ended up going to Florida State University. And I had followed her up there. And this was the time when I heard, like, I had a couple buddies at this time that I was probably 17, almost 18. And buddies that had hit a bank and got away with it, got a couple $100,000, you know what I mean? And like, damn, I gotta do this. But there was nobody willing to go with me, you know what I mean? I think I went back down to Brevard County, grabbed a few buddies, went back. I don't even know if I told them what we were doing, you know what I mean, at the time, like why they were coming back with me. Like, so I got them back up there with me, and just started staking out banks, trying to find something. And I remember hearing too about an armored truck that was in the same area. They might have went to the same bank because it was right there. It's like Florida State, the football stadium is like, in Tallahassee, FSU is everything. It's all college kids, the whole town is run by college kids. But the stadium's so big and so beautiful, and like pretty much the main thing in that city. And right behind it is just a little Bank of America. And I remember reading in the news or something about an armored truck that had like left there, and they forgot to close the back door or something, and a big block of money that was all saran wrapped. It was like $400,000, and somebody found it, and they ended up getting spooked and turning it in. They didn't get no reward or nothing. I'm like, these scumbags didn't even get this dude a reward for turning this money. So I was like, that's the bank we're going to, you know what I mean? So I ended up telling my buddies what we're going to do. One of them was like, he'll drive my car, and the other one, he really wasn't with. He was supposed to be some kind of lookout or something. He didn't want to do it or whatever. So he ended up going to like a Whataburger next door and just going and sitting. So we basically planned this all out in like a 2-day period or something. It was like, something spur of the moment, but something I've been wanting to do for a while. So because I couldn't get nobody go in there and lay it down with me, I'm like, I got to do the whole the note thing. But I had brought a gun with me because I didn't intend it to show it to the teller, but I intended, like, I'm not going to prison no matter what. Either I get away with it or I'm dead. So if these cops come up on me, I'm going to pull the gun on me and do suicide by cop. They're going to kill me. And what I did is I purposely didn't bring the clip in it, so there's no bullets, just a gun so they would have known afterwards I never really intended, to do any harm to the police. So I get to this bank, and it's perfect, really, how it is. It's like I said, it's right by the FSU stadium. It's got a front door and it's got a back door that are both open. It's an extremely busy bank, but behind it is some woods with a trail that everybody uses. They live back in, it's all hood back there too. So everybody in the hood will walk through this trail on game days to go to the FSU football games. So I go in through the front. I finally get up to the thing. I give the lady the note, and I think she tried to help me out at first, because I've learned later that, there's all these spots for like 1s, 5, 10s, and then there's this extra spot. And they don't touch that spot. If they touch that spot, that's the alarm going off. So she had given me all the money, and I realized in my head, I'm like, damn, that's not a lot of money. If this is a Friday at like 3 o'clock, probably everybody's cashed their checks. Like, there's not that much. I fucked up. So she starts to call. I'm like, no, give me the rest of that. And I ended up showing her. I remember I don't think she took me serious at first. So I'd opened the book bag and showed her the pistol that was in there. So then she gives me everything. So then I'm thinking, damn, this ain't that much money. I know there's more money down bottom, but I got to worry about dye packs and stuff like that. But already I can hear the sirens coming. So I'm like, fuck, I got to get out of here. So I dip through the back and I hear all these people, hey, white boy, where you going? People yelling at me and stuff. So run across this little field, jump to a barbed wire fence. I got a big scar on my arm right here that remind me of jumping that barbed wire fence. But get back there, run through the thing. Then there's this big concrete company, which later on, when I was in prison, I met this kid from Tallahassee, and his dad owned that concrete company. So I get back there, my homeboy's there, boom, he pops the trunk. I get in the trunk, close it, boom, he's speeding off, driving, and I can hear sirens everywhere, cops everywhere. But within a couple turns, we're in the middle of Florida State University, college, like I know for, like we're good, you know what I mean? That's why it was stupid. I ain't gonna lie. I used my car, my own car, but I knew once, where we were, like, nobody's ever finding that. So, dip off, go to, like, I think went back to my apartment complex eventually, and threw everything in the dumpster, and I think later on that night ended up taking my buddies back to Brevard County, like Cocoa Beach area. That's where, I had grew up at. And that night, one of my buddies, because I didn't get, I really didn't get nothing, like nothing what I thought I was going to get. So I told my buddy, like, the one driving, I maybe gave him something, but the other one that was supposed to be in and didn't want to do it, I'm like, I can't give you nothing, dude. I'm sorry. So that night, I think he went somewhere to like a party that one of our buddies was throwing, and he ended up robbing. This was like his best friend too, taking all the kids' moms' platinum jewelry. So months go by, and he ends up getting in trouble for that. And to try to get out of that, he's like, listen, I know about this bank robbery, you know what I mean? And gave him all that info. So I remember one day, it was like a couple months later, I go back to my apartment complex, and I'm in my car, of course, still got it like an idiot. And I hear all this, it's like kind of late at night, but I hear all this banging and stuff, and I'm like, damn, it's kind of late for them to be doing maintenance. And what it was, a bunch of cops, and the dude downstairs was selling dope, and they had just knocked his door in. So that's what the noise was. They were like, trying to get the door back, on the frame or whatever. And I was like, fuck. And I went upstairs, got all my shit, like anything that I may have had left over or whatever. And I tell you the truth, I think I still had the gun at that point. And I threw the gun in the fucking trash and all that, go downstairs, throw the gun into the dumpster, and as soon as I let go of the bag, hey, come here for a second. And it's a cop, and he's like, hey, is that your car? Yeah, that's my car. All right, well, can we get your information? Because we heard about somebody that was around here ran some old lady off the road or something. And right in my head, I knew, this motherfucker's getting my information. He just, he knows what time it is. And that's what they did. They got my license plate, then they took my driver's license picture, put it in a lineup, and brought it back to the bank teller and showed her. But, like, when they do it, whenever somebody picks somebody out of a lineup, they have to basically say how sure they are that this person, you know what I mean? See, she said 70% sure. So that, I guess that's workable, but at the same time, like, so I knew once that cop got all that, like, I went back down south, hid out for a while, and after a little bit, these detectives are calling me and stuff, telling me to come turn myself in. I'm like, fuck. So I didn't know what to do. I wasn't going to turn myself in, but what they did is they started calling all my family members and telling them that they're looking for me. I'm armed and dangerous, so if they come in contact with me, they might kill me or something. So now I got all my family calling me, and like, they're worried, and like, oh, they're going to kill you, all this stuff. Fuck, man. So I ended up turning myself in, And man, my mom, my stepdad, and both my brothers all put up. They paid like 70 grand for my lawyer. Like they all put a lot of money up. I had this lawyer was like the top 3 of all Florida. Like, damn, that's great. And dude was good. And he's like, that 70% we can work with, but there's kind of a lot of other things. And then come to find out, one of my like close main homeboys that I grew up with and hitting the houses with, ended up, years later, everything I did was with him, and I forgave him, but he had also told on me. So my lawyer at first was like, this one dude that's involved, maybe he said some things, but that's really not that big. Anybody's going to try to get out of trouble. But somebody that's not involved and is your friend, and he's saying you did it, like, that's bad. I'm 18. I'm like, dude, I'm not going, because Florida at the time has 10, 20 life. If you use a gun in a robbery, you're either getting 10 years, 20 years, or life. So it's a PBL, punishable by life. And I was terrified, honestly. So I'm still like, I'm not. You know what I mean? I didn't do it. Wasn't me. Let's go to trial. And I waited a year in the county. And to go to trial, that lawyer, of course, wanted more money. That 70 grand wasn't enough, not for him. Nobody's got no more money than that to put up, you know what I mean? So he keeps trying to get me to take these pleas. Then the day that I go to pick my jury, I'm wearing a suit. My other co-defendant, he's there. He's wearing a suit because they're trying us together. The other one, they've got him separate, I guess, because he was, talking or whatever. So I got my suit, and there was a different judge there this day, because the original judge I remember had given one of my other homeboys that was had met while I was in jail there. We ended up writing a screenplay together while we were in jail and stuff, like for a whole movie, because that's what my brother was into and doing that stuff. So we did that. This dude had the same charge as me and got 2 life sentences. I'm like, oh fuck, I'm scarred. I'm through. So it was a different judge there that day when we were doing the jury, and he was like, listen, I'll give you guys youthful offender right now, but both y'all got to take it. It can't be just one or the other. Both y'all got to take it. So I found out my other co-defendant, he's willing to take it. I mean, he just drove, so of course I figured he would do it. I'm still like, I'm not doing it, dude. I want to go home, man. And what they did is they brought my mom in there crying. And she's like, oh, I can handle you doing the 6 years. I can't handle you doing, 10, 20, whatever. Fuck. So I was like, damn, we'll do it. So I ended up signing the plea. Now, youthful offender in Florida maxes out at 6. You only get 6 years, which is great. And I think that's up until you're 19. You can get youthful offender. And we ended up both taking that. He got 3 in. It's got to equal 6. So if you do 4 in, then I got to do 2 years out in probation. He got 3 and 3. I got 4 and 2, which was honestly, for what we did, like, I got off good. Especially all the other bullshit I've done in my life. You know what I mean? I got off good. But I lucked out, because when the night that I left to go to the reception center, when we were in Tallahassee, so you go to North Florida Reception Center, which is Butler, and that's a rough spot. You know what I mean? You hear about them killing inmates and torturing people, doing all types of crazy stuff. And but that night when I left, bam, my co-defendant's there with me. I'm like, oh hell yeah, this is great. So we go to the reception center, and where they store the youthful offender, like, it's not dorm style. It's like you see like in the movies, you're in a 2-man room, a bunk with the bars in the front. So it was like the real deal prison experience off rip. And it was a wild experience, but it's like, it's always the same. No matter where you go, there's like always the same types of people. You get some weird dude that comes in trying to be your friend, and he knows everything, but he of course wants something. You learn that quick. But we were there for a little bit, and then when I get transferred, like 3 or 4, whatever it is, in the middle of the night, they tell you to roll it up. And I look behind me, and my co-defendant's there with me too. So I'm like, damn, this is great. You know what I mean? I'm going, this whole thing I got to do, with him. And man, every dorm we went to, I was with him. If I got moved to the work camp, he got moved to the work camp. No matter what, we were together the whole time. He got out a year before I did, but that was pretty cool. You know what I mean? To get to do that, that was big for me. You know what I mean? That puts a lot of weight off when you got somebody that him for a long time. He's a good, solid dude, and he's there with you all the time. That was huge.
Did you experience that violence that you had heard of these, these places?
Yeah, and especially youthful offender. Of course, when I got sentenced and I knew I was going to youthful offender, when you're in the county jail and you're waiting, there's all these people. Oh shit, man! You're going they trying to scare you up. Misery loves company, so all these dudes are try to terrify you. Yeah, I think it probably worked. I'm sure, but it was rough, dude. Because there's at the time I think there was 6 youthful offender. There might be one now still. They all got shut down because of all the stuff that was going on. And you're talking this was 2000 or 2001. There's no video cameras in prison, nothing like that. We're in Trenton, Florida, which is in the middle of nowhere, small population. Basically, everybody that is there works, at the prison or somewhere close by, and they make their own rules. You know what I mean? All of them got these keychains hanging out their pockets, which has got 13 knots on it, which is supposed to be, I think, how many loops there is on a noose or something. And then and the big ball at the end. When you look at the ball, the way it's sewn, it's there's a swastika on the end of it. You're like, oh fuck, damn, what the hell did I get into? So when you first get there and you pull up on the bus, they come on the bus and they're fucking smacking the shit out of you and screaming and yelling. Then you get off and you go to they call it the paint room. You go in that room and they're fucking push-ups, mountain climbers, squat thrusts. You're doing all this shit fucking over and over. They do it for about an hour, break your ass down. And the whole thing's kind of built off the military, as far as you're gonna wake up to the sound of the bugle going every morning. Then you're gonna go and do it was either a half hour or an hour of PT, physical training. Then you're gonna go to breakfast. Then you're gonna go to work for the day, and then come back. And then you can go to the yard, whatever you do. But anywhere you go, chow, anything like that, you're marching. Wherever you go, you got to sound off. They're doing cadence the whole time. There's somebody on the side, calling cadence for when you march. Anything you do wrong, it's push-ups or some form of physical training. In the wintertime, they're going to turn on the fans on high and open up all the windows. Summertime, they're going to turn the fans off, close all the windows. They might get bored and be get you up in the middle of the night, get all your property. And these are dorm styles now. So get all your property, put it on in your sheets, put it on your back, and we're going to go mountain climbing. So you're going to go around. If it's a single bunk, you go over it. If it's a double bunk, you're either going to go between it or over that, and you might do that for fucking hours. Or they may be everybody take your property and dump it in the middle of the room. And there's 60 people or something with all their property, all your pictures of your family, letters, everything you love and cherish, all that you have in the world is in there. And now, all right, y'all go get it. Now, your food, everything. And, you got to fight with 60 people to try to get all your shit back. You know what I mean? And, of course, there's some weird dudes out there that want to, have pictures of your chick or something like that. A bunch of weird shit. They used to take us outside and be like, all right, grab a rock. Some people grab a little rock. Some people grab a big rock. All right, now dig your graves. You'd have to fucking take that rock and dig a giant fucking grave for yourself. I don't know why they would do that to us, but another time I might see have you dig the biggest hole you've ever seen. I'm talking about 20 feet across, 6 feet deep. Everybody with shovels just building this fucking digging for a week straight, just digging. And then at the end, and then while you're digging, there's like somebody that fucked up that's running around with cinder blocks on his back. He's running around the formation the whole time, and when you're done digging, or they feel like you're done digging, the cop will come up and throw in a leaf. All right, cover it up. You're like, fuck, man. Just did all that for him to throw a leaf in that shit. They just did all types of crazy stuff like that. You'd hear about, all the time we'd have the news outside because some kid in confinement died. And, like, they'd be like, oh, he was in there and working out with his inhaler and his heart exploded or something. But then I'd have a homeboy that works in confinement be like, dude, you could smell the gas in there. They gassed his ass. And it's not just like, they have like the ones on their hips and stuff, but in confinement, they have these fucking tanks that they roll in on dollies. Big fucking 4-foot tanks they roll in on dollies and just stick it in thorns and fucking macing the shit out of people. And sometimes they would die, you know what I mean? And then they would just say, that it was something else. You know what I mean? That would happen a lot. And sooner or later, that place did get shut down. Like, the feds came in and shut that shit down. There's a lot of crazy articles. If you look up Lancaster Correctional Institution, but all youthful offender ones were rough.
Why would they gas these kids? What were they doing that to cause that?
Who knows? They were probably, it wasn't for no reason. I'm sure these kids were talking shit. And like I said, it was a lot of like, KKK, which it's still like that today. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've seen it. I sent you guys a AP News article about how the Ku Klux Klan is like heavy in Florida prisons, to this day, and the stuff that they're doing. And, probably some black kid that was mouthing off to them, and, they definitely weren't having that shit. And I would see that all the time where there was like, dudes coming in and be like, basically they felt like there was rules, like you guys can't just do whatever they want, but they did do whatever they want. And it was rough for me too, because these dudes were super racist and they were very hard on the black inmates or the Spanish inmates. But I was a white kid and I had gold teeth at the time. So to them, I was like, I'm worse than all of them. You know what I mean? So they really hated me. Oh my God.
What would they do to you?
Just, all that stuff, or they might take you in the room and cuff you up and beat the shit, like they'd beat the shit out. But they did that to all of us. You know what I mean? It would be more like to single me out. It would just be like screaming and like, we'd all be working out, but they'd be like extra hard on me. But as far as everything that was happening, it was happening to everybody. You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody that escaped that stuff.
How would the other kids treat you because you were someone that robbed a bank? Were you looked at high on the totem pole?
I don't know. I think a lot of, at that time we're kids, and I think maybe probably a lot of them thought that was cool or whatever, but it was that, and it was, so now everybody's got like, everybody's got their own tablets, and, you can get pictures sent in. At that time, all you could do was use the phone or write letters and get pictures sent in. You get 5 pictures sent in at a time. And, but we all had picture books. And that's how you did, like, you showed people your picture books, and that's how, like, you would relate with people and show what you were doing on the streets. I had, like, 4 picture books, and, like all my homeboys always looked out for me, sending me tons of pictures and stuff, and, like, all of them got, in Florida at that time, or still now, like, it's popular to have, like, cars on big rims and, like, all the music speakers and stuff. So all my friends had a whole bunch of cars and all that shit, and so I had tons of pictures of all this shit, and everybody like, oh, everybody loved that type of shit, which was cool too and good and worked out later for me because, like, I guess people knew that, like, anything we talked about, I was probably serious about what we talked about. So if we made plans for later on once we got out, almost always those plans came to fruition and came true. So I think that helped there, but it's just so weird when you're in prison and with that many people. There's so many people in there for so many different things. And, like, you can look at some people and realize, like, that dude, you can tell he don't belong here. He probably, was driving drunk and his girlfriend got killed in the car or something, and that's why he's here. You could just tell they didn't belong there. And then there'd be, like, like the prison I was at, for my age, it was supposed to be, like, 18 to 25. So even though, it would be up until 19 that you could get youthful offender, you could stay in youthful offender until you were 25, and then you would get moved to adult. But sometimes people would slip through. Like I had a bunkie one time that was like 15 from Miami that was in there for murder. And a lot of people in for murder, or like you might get these weird kids that you knew something was off. And like what we would do then is like, say a dude was an orderly up in like an admin in the administration office. He would get some of the ladies that worked up there to look up people's charges. And you find out dude like had been raping his little fucking 5-year-old sister his whole life or something. And then you'd wake up every night and they're fucking torturing this kid and like putting Bengay in his eye and fucking doing all types of just crazy shit. So I think for the most part, because the officers were so bad, it brought the inmates together. Like it was more us versus them instead of like where most prisons, it's like, inmate versus inmate in that setting, even though it's, of course shit went on, but it was mostly like us versus them. You know what I mean?
What's a moment in there that you'll never forget that'll like never leave your mind?
Oh man. I've actually got a few. One of them is like how they used to torture that kid that was in the dorm with me that, had been raping his sister and the things that they used to do to him. Another one is one of my buddies, this white kid that like he had got into it with the Latin Kings, and he didn't fight one of them, beat the shit out of him. So they'd come a couple deep. He'd beat the shit out of them. That kept happening. Then one night, in the middle of the night, we wake up, and they tried to they would put locks, combination locks on the belts, and that's how they get into fights like that. And they went in there, a bunch of them, and tried to get him while he was sleeping. And he fucking sent every one of them to the helicopter had to land and airlift every one of them out of there. Everybody knew not to fuck with that dude after that. Another time would be where I seen somebody like really get hit with a lock on a sock or a lock on a belt and just be cut, like that movie Carrie or whatever. They pour that pig's blood on the girl and she's just drenched from head to toe in blood. That's what they look like. That shit's wild. I remember one time, one of them, officers, I remember his name. I don't know if I should say it, but he ended up having a heart attack on the rec yard. These dudes went in, grabbed his walkie-talkie and got him help and saved his life. And afterwards, he fucking beat the shit out of both of them, and they both got like in all this trouble for getting on his walkie-talkie. And so I just remember stuff like that.
Why would he beat the crap out of him?
They were just nuts,
saved his
dude.
life.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they were insane, dude.
Why were the guards so against these inmates?
I just think it was at the time where they were like, were the shit of society, and they're extremely racist. And they can do what they live in a town where they can do what, like, there's no law. They can do whatever they want. And they did. They definitely did. I remember the first time when my custody dropped and I was at the work camp, started going outside the gates to work. First you go with an officer, but then when your custody drops again, you go out with like a worker from like the county or something. And I remember the first day going out and this dude bought us chicken for lunch. And I remember bawling my eyes out in the back of the van because I couldn't comprehend, because it's been so many years, like I couldn't comprehend how like there was this adult authority person that was like treating it with any kind of respect or anything, It was so bizarre to me at the time. And I remember just like bawling my eyes out like, holy shit, what the fuck is happening right now? But, yeah, there's a lot of things I'll never, that I'll never forget about that.
Where was your dad while you were serving the sentence? Was he supportive? Did he visit you?
Yeah, I think they all were, except for I think both my brothers maybe like kind of held a grudge with me at that time and for a while after. Yeah, my dad would come visit me. It was probably like a 6-hour drive or maybe like 3 hours one way, 3 hours back. He would come sometimes. My mom at the time was actually here in this area, and she used to come down a couple times a year and see me. and she would constantly write me letters. My mom was always extremely, extremely supportive. My dad and my stepmom, like, they would come see me and stuff, and write me letters. And then I always remember, too, and this is another thing I'll remember because I feel so bad. I had the chick that I was with that was at Florida State going to college. I would basically make her bring me in, like, dope. Because she'd come every single weekend. Like, my family, every couple months or, like, twice a year or something. But this girl was coming every weekend. She was a very dedicated chick. So I said, well, man, you gotta start bringing in this. My homeboy's got it. You gotta start bringing it in. So she would be bringing it in. And finally, one of my brothers and his girlfriend had come from New York City and come down there, and they're like finally going to come see me and, like, start to let me back into their lives and stuff. And that same very day, I get popped in visitation afterwards with the dope. Somebody had told on me. I had some weed, coke, and steroids, some D-balls. And this Mexican kid, I remember, wanted the D-balls. I wouldn't sell them. He ended up telling his guard on me. They went right to it. And so, of course, then they had to call everybody that was there that day. Like, they called and were like, you might be getting some charges or something like this. You definitely can't come visit this dude no more. So I'm like, oh, my God, of all time for this to happen. My brother just starts to let me in. He's got this new girlfriend he brings. They come down from New York City, and now all of a sudden they're like, could be facing charges for bringing in dope and stuff. And I remember feeling so horrible about that. And ended up going to confinement for a couple months behind that. Lost all my game time. No more phone calls, no more mail, no more Vizzo, none of that. That was rough.
But they never charged you for that.
They didn't. At that time, they really didn't do that. Now, later on, I see that they would do that constantly. They would always give people outside charges for that. But for some reason at that time, and probably for the amount of what I was getting in, like, back then people weren't really, like, they were smoking some weed. Coke was unheard of, so I had that. I was, the steroids were just for me. But there really wasn't nothing else, Of course, later on, or how it is now, like, it's just flooded with everything. So, especially in Florida. So, yeah, that was rough. I went to the box for a while for that, and then come out. And after you go to the confinement at the main unit, and so afterwards you stay there for a while. And actually, eventually, ended up going back to the work camp, and the job that they gave me was the lieutenant's orderly. And the lieutenant's orderly is in charge of the Vizzo Park. So all these other guards that were there and remember what happened, they're like, you can't make this dude in charge. He just got, trouble bringing dope through here. You can't do that. But they did. I did do that for a while, so that was cool. But yeah, it was youthful offender prison was definitely rough.
And you ended up doing 4 years there completely?
Yeah. I think I maybe ended up getting like 2 months gain time back or something eventually, but pretty much I had maxed out because of that.
So basically 4 years.
Yeah.
So you get out, you're 22 at the time?
24.
24. Oh, because a year in county after you got charged and everything.
Yeah. So all that. So maybe a little bit before, but I was around 24. I do remember that. It was 2004 when I got out. And so basically, like, especially in Florida, like, you're meeting all these dudes. A lot of the dudes that I knew were from Miami. Had also met my buddy from Texas that got caught with like 500 pounds of weed in Jacksonville and was there. Like, you link up with all these kind of like-minded people, and really we just spent years out on the yard just talking and, making plans. And actually, even before I got out, my buddies had went out there, met his girl, got a couple bricks of cocaine from his girl, And I don't know if it was the first trip or the second trip. My other homeboy went with them, and he was going to drive it back, and ended up getting popped on the way back in I-10 with like 2 kilos and like 2 AK-47s. And he ended up getting like 30 years or something, but only did in like Texas. It's crazy. He only did like 5 or 6 and got out. And he was with Pimp C the whole when he was he slept like 2 bunks down from Pimp C when he was there. But yeah, you just meet all these people, you know, especially from like Miami or South Florida. Like as far as Florida goes, like Florida's a whole nother world. Miami is a whole nother world that like is off the chain.
Why do you think guys make plans to commit more crimes while in prison?
Probably because we were young and stupid, and also just I don't think everybody does that. I mean, I hope not. Anyway, I just think that it was my mentality, and it was also because when I went away, all my buddies were still on the street, and they were like really hustling and like making large amounts of money, and they're young and they're buying fucking 3 or 4 houses, and they got all these cars and doing all this shit. So I knew the money was out there for when I got out, you know what I mean? So I'm making plans with people and stuff. You know, why they do, I don't know. I don't recommend it, but you know what I mean?
So where does your path take you once you get out?
Same old stuff, hustling, making money. All my buddies are like, you know, the first thing you do, like when you get out, my buddies are already established, and there might be like 2 other buddies that got out, but they got out before you, so they're a little bit higher up. Like first, what I'm doing is like I'm driving him around. They call it in Florida, we call it making sticks, like to meet people and sell dope. You know what I mean? So every make we do, boom, they hand me some cash. Then, you know, we had the thing with with my buddy in Texas, but that's kind of, you know, that's kind of far and long to make that trip. And I remember one night, I forget when it was, but we're in Brevard County. It's right outside of Orlando. Orlando's like 30, 40 minutes away. And my buddy's going to go to Orlando for some, it's like Oktoberfest or something. I got out July 24th, 2004. So when October comes around, he's going to Oktoberfest in Orlando. I don't want to go. I'm not supposed to leave the county anyway, even though I do that sometimes. And he goes out there, not having fun, decides to leave. When he's leaving, kicks this phone and picks it up, brings it back for whatever reason. When he gets it back, I'm thinking, oh, you know, we read a lot of books, like self-help books, you know, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all these books when you're in prison, you know what I mean? And like, I got to change my karma. I got to do some kind of good. I got to get this phone back to this owner. And it was locked, so I couldn't call anybody. But like after like 3 days, it rang, and I answered. And this chick, she's like, "I don't know the area. Let me put you on with my boyfriend." I'm like, "All right." So I'm talking to him. I'm like, "Holy shit, this sounds like, you know, such and somebody I was in prison with." And he was a Latin king and a cool kid, but he wasn't really like, you know, I'd never talked to him about dope or anything like that, you know. So I'm like, damn, I know this is him. So I say his street name that nobody really knew in prison. He had just happened to tell me one time, and I remembered it, and I said it. Click. Phone goes blank. I'm like, oh, shit, I fucked up. I shouldn't have done that. So I start trying to keep calling him back. He wouldn't answer. He's probably freaked out. I guess phones did do text at that time. So I think I started texting him, telling him who I was to him, like, this is Lee. And so finally he hits me back. He can't believe it. They drive to Cocoa that night, talking to him. That night we followed him back, and then ended up he fronted us like 2 bricks of coke that night, and we come back with that. And it was kind of on and popping from there. And then we started linking up with some of my buddies from Miami, going down there like twice a week, grabbing a couple bricks, coming back. And so I wanted to also be like, there's all these dudes in prison that were like, I'm going to write you, you know what I mean? I'm going to, I can keep in touch. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, right, because nobody ever does. I'm like, dude, I promise I'm never going to do that. So I started to be that dude where, like, I'm writing people letters, I'm sending people money. You got to send money orders at that time, and then they go on the books. And I would also do where, like, when you get out, I'll come pick you up. I'll bring you clothes, I'll buy you shoes, give you some money, and then drive you wherever you need to go, you know what I mean? And I did that quite a few times. And, but I remember because, like, I'm sending these people pictures, and they're pictures of me. There might be pictures of like 70 grand or something like that, cars, all this shit I'm sending these people. Well, the guards at Lancaster in the mailroom recognized my picture, and they're like, oh, hell no. So they started sending all these, taking copies and everything, and sending them to my probation officer. So now all of a sudden my probation officer knows everything. And like we're going out, like Cape Canaveral's right there, so you can go out on the gambling ships. So it goes out like 3 miles, and you're in international waters. So now you're able to, it's legal to gamble. So she'd be like, you're not supposed to leave the county. When you're going out on the ships and going out, you're leaving the country. You can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, oh shit. So she knew like right away. But I remember she was so happy and proud with me because, like my buddy had owned a clothing store. So right away I said I worked there. She's like, damn, I got all these people that, I've been had for 6 months and can't find a job. And you're here right away. She was just happy with me for, a few different reasons. So, just be careful what you're doing. All right. But I was smoking a lot of weed and stuff. And eventually I remember getting piss test and failing. And I remember she felt so bad. I went in there and the cops were waiting for me the next time I went in, and the cops were waiting on me. Took me to jail. Then you got to get fucking moved all the way, because Tallahassee, I'm in Cocoa, but I got to go all the way back to Tallahassee, see the original judge or whatever, where I got my charges. So that was horrible. And, sitting up there for a while and finally getting out. And I remember it was the same prosecutor who hated me before, and he was in there. He's like, oh, no, we'll let him back out. He wasn't the one that went in the bank and all this. I'm like, oh, my God, this is great. So they end up letting me back out. And but now I've got a 7 to 7 curfew now that I'm out. So I can't go out. I can only be out of my house between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. unless you're working. So a couple of my buddies had this rap group or whatever in the area, Haters Better Duck, HBD. So we started a radio show. So that was like my way of, like, this is my job. I've got a radio show. I can be out in the club at night and, like, we're promoting whatever we're doing. And she was cool with it. She basically let me do whatever. She would even tell me, like, later on down the line, like, oh, the DEA or these guys, special investigation unit, they want to come in, use me to come in your backyard and take pictures of all the cars and stuff. She's like, I told them no. I'm like, damn. She just felt so bad after violating me that first time, but had looked out for me a lot after that. So.
And they never popped you for selling drugs?
Well, what happened was she wouldn't work with them. So what they did end up just changing my probation officer and giving me somebody who would work with them. So I remember one night, it's late, and these people never come by. They never do nothing. I'm living way out in the woods. I got a pit bull kennel out in the back. I got like 26 pit bulls out in the back. And it's late at night, and she calls. Like, oh, I'm going to stop by. So right away, I'm like, oh, fuck, damn, I knew. And it just happened to be the first time that the girl I ended up marrying was coming over to the house. And we never let no females, nothing, like nobody's allowed at the house. You know what I mean? But there was no dope. There was nothing there. So I'm like, fuck. So they end up coming, and boom, next thing there's like 20 of them. And they all got the black hoods on and the fucking DEA bulletproof vests and all that shit. There's nothing in the house. So, they had thought, because my homeboy, my roommate, he had just went from to Texas for a funeral. His uncle died. And they thought that he went out there to get a couple bricks, but that wasn't the case. So they're like, they found this giant safe. We had safes on the floor. They didn't find them. We had these giant fucking safes. And they had this dude come in. It took him like 6 hours, dude, to get in the safe. And they finally got in the safe, but all that was in there was a gun. And it wasn't in my room. It was in my homeboy's room. So they were a little upset about that. And the girl, I ended up marrying her. She didn't tell them nothing. It's like, damn, this bitch is solid. But that was like the beginning of that. I think after that, I basically was like I said, I'm marrying this girl. She got pregnant before that. Like, I'm going to, pretty much go straight. I was still, getting a bunch of pounds of weed from Texas, or like, my homeboys in Miami give me a couple ounces of crack at a time or something, but basically I wasn't doing much. Now that the whole doctor shopping thing in Florida was pumping big at the time, I did get into, kind of doing all that and making money with that. But then also, getting hooked on that shit too through all that. And that shit was, rampant and out of control at the time.
How long did you do on the home confinement?
Well, I think when I got out of prison,
Yeah, the
it
violation.
Well,
the 7 to 7,
an extra.
the curfew.
It was like an extra 6 months over the 2 years. I think that was it, or maybe 3 years at the most altogether.
And you completed all that
Yeah,
without any issues.
Yeah. After that, I completed that and did that.
But you were selling drugs throughout that whole time.
Oh yeah. And they knew they knew what was going on, but kind of smart about it, I guess. Like, a lot of things happened at that time with different people getting popped and different people telling and stuff. A lot of us would leave kind of state, or some different people leave for a while and go, Maryland or somewhere, go out for a while before we came back. So, the girl I ended up marrying, she was from Indiana. She's from Indianapolis. So eventually, at some point, that's what she wants to do is move back up there. So I'm like, fuck it. I'll go. I was always used to moving and doing different shit. So we ended up going back up there. But of course, I've already got like a mean addiction to opiates at this time. And again, I always meet kind of like-minded people that are hustling and doing different things like that. And, I got in with some dudes from Chicago that I linked up and did a lot of different stuff with, and hit a couple licks for robbed one dude for $80,000, another dude for $60,000, a few smaller ones, shit like that. And eventually, I'm talking about, this is a big time. Like, I got out in 2004. There's a lot of time that passed in between where I'm, just kind of in limbo, hustling here and there. And, I've had some really rough and low points, but I never really worried about that because I always knew that, somewhere around the corner, something good will pop. And it always did, you know what I mean? Whether it was robbing some drug dealer, or, you know what I mean, or hustling, or, something always happened. And I think eventually, when heroin started really popping off after the Roxys, the Blues and stuff, I had found out what it was going for in Florida, and it was a lot. And I was like, that can't be, because Florida used to be like the cheap spot. When we were getting coke, we were getting bricks, it was much cheaper than what everybody else was getting it for. So I couldn't believe. I called some people yeah, no, that's what it's going for. It's like, damn. So my buddy from Chicago gave me 200 grams of heroin. I got on the fucking mega bus, went back down to Florida, and just started up from there. And eventually, of course, link up with some of my old buddies and stuff. Now, most of my buddies, like my roommate at that house at the time, my other buddies, they got murdered and killed. So a lot of my close homeboys are dead and gone, but some of my other buddies are still around. So, back to hustling again, doing all that. And man, within a year of being back in Florida, I got fucking 104 co-defendants. I got the RICO. I got a conspiracy to sell methamphetamine, conspiracy to sell heroin. I got all these fucking crazy charges. And it's on the news. I don't know if you watched the link that I sent you, but like they got the governor there and they're like making a real big deal of it. And it's like kind of a big political thing. I'm like, fuck, man, I'm fucking scarred. I didn't get caught with no dope, no nothing. Even though, like, even when they came to the house to arrest me, they're standing at the door with the door open, calling for me and the chick I'm with to come out. And never once did they come in, get the safe. There was so much shit in there. They didn't do none of that. They were just calling us for to come out. We come out, they get us, and take us to jail. And I remember I had like a half ounce of fentanyl that I hadn't cut yet. And I stuck it in my ass, go to jail. Now I got that in with me in jail. I fucking go to sleep. Or when I first get in there, all my homeboys like, oh, what's up? They're always they're looking for something. So I break off a few of them like this, and boom, I go to sleep. And I remember waking up and hearing all this. I'm like, damn, dude's fucking snoring loud as shit. Go back to sleep, wake up. There's fire department cops everywhere. All these people lay down on the ground, and it wasn't them snoring. It was them gargling and choking, and they were all dying. And thank God none of them did die. Now, like, I remember, like, my one buddy, my homeboy Trouble, he said that, he's like, man, I seen my dead grandpa, and, like, he thought he was dead, but they brought all these guys back to life. And they knew because I had just come in, and I came in with fentanyl charges too, because I think maybe they did. Maybe I had a small like fentanyl charge, or had one prior to that or something. So they'd keep coming in every day, rushing us in the dorm and trying to find it, and they couldn't. And then one day they did. They got me, but I lucked out because like what we would do is the fentanyl is white and rocked up. So if you just saw it on the street and you were a cop, you'd think it was cocaine. So we would put a little cocaine in it. They would field test it for cocaine. It would turn blue. So you would beat that fentanyl because the fentanyl holds much more, time than the cocaine does. So, that's what happened. Ended up getting like introduction to a jail facility or whatever, but like they said, it was cocaine. So I like lucked out. But thank God none of them dudes died. I would have been really in rough shape.
So what happened to that drug case you were on?
So a lot of us sat in there for a long time. A lot of people were like, oh, they're not taking no charge. And a lot of people got some really big charges. And I'm like, fuck this. I'm trying to actually ended up bonding out after like 6 months, going to stay with my mom in South Florida. And they offered me, and I took it, right? I like took the first thing. Like there was all these people, they were like offering them decent things and they didn't. And then later on they'd end up getting like triple the amount of time or something because they thought they were going to beat it. And I ended up just taking the first one. So it was 4 years. So they gave me 4 years. For the RICO, I think they dropped all the conspiracy charges, but just for the RICO, they had offered me 4 years. I'll take it right now. So I took that. And now it's like, yeah. Now this was during like COVID hadn't happened yet. So when I'm in the county jail waiting to go to prison after I turn myself in, that's when COVID starts happening. So I never experienced none. You know what I mean? I don't know what people went through a lot of rough times at that time. Like I don't know anything about that. I just know what it was like there. And there were a lot of people getting sick, people dying, the whole toilet paper thing. But for some reason, every time they would check me, I would get moved to like, there'd be all these dorms that were all in lockdown. There'd be one dorm that doesn't have it. And I would always be in that dorm. You know what I mean? And, so yeah, I ended up going to, first place I went to was Florida State Penitentiary. And now up until then, I'd only been to the YO, so that's all I knew. You know what I mean? But it's night and day difference, the way the guards treat you. And now there's video cameras, of course, everywhere, so they can't get away with a lot of things that, that they used to get. But it's also like they're like going in these dorms, going to like trap houses. You know, I remember like walking into this dorm in FSP, and all I could smell was fucking weed and Molly. And there's just big groups of people in these dorms everywhere, just all around, just smoking. And there's one dude that his job is just to do laps around the dorm, spraying smell good. And he'd have a locker full of food because that's all he had to do was just walk around and cover up that smell. And of course, the bunk that I get to is like way back in the corner. It's one of the bunks where the cameras can't see to. And I could tell my bunkies were hustling heavy, like real heavy. And so basically the doors would be locked, but, you know, people could get in and, or, you know, work call or whatever it happened, people, they call it sliding. So they'd slide to different dorms and shit. So, but all day people would be sliding into my dorm, come back there. My bunkie would be on his bed with his cell phone, and these dudes would just, boom, call their people, hey, send this amount of money to this Cash App. Boom, my bunkie would check it, making a killing. And actually one of the guards, this female guard, ended up getting popped, getting in trouble, and she was the one bringing all the dope in. But she didn't say anything. And I remember he actually bonded her out of jail. That same night that she went in, he fucking called his people in Orlando and boom, got her out. He was a solid dude. But eventually they would, like, you know, start trusting me more and more. All right, you do this, bag up all this dope, shit like that. And one night the K9, all the dogs come in, they strip us all down to our boxers, everybody's in there, and they take the whole corner to confinement under investigation because they really didn't, you know, they didn't have no proof or nothing. That chick never said nothing. The guard never said nothing, but they, you know, of course they knew. So they ended up bringing us over to the, I guess it's the East Unit or something, whatever it's called, the main unit at FSP. But it was good because, like, we're all next to each other, and you're in these, like the first time I went to prison, when I was in, like, the old school where you're in this single room with the bars, and that's how it was. And that's how, like, if I go to confinement, I don't want to be, like, at Lancaster when I had a bunkie. So you're like, even though you're in confinement, it's not solitary confinement. You're in there with somebody, and that shit sucks, especially if you don't like them. But this shit was sweet because it's like there's nobody, you know, nobody in the room with you. But I remember that night, first night I wake up, and I'm like fucking itching and like tearing real bad because they had maced somebody in there and didn't clean it up good. So there was still mace like all over the pillows and stuff like that. So, and then I found out that all the guards say that this was the old wing where all the people on death row, this is the old death row wing. So the room that I'm in is the room that Ted Bundy was living in when he got executed. And all the guards would say, like, that it was haunted, you know what I mean? Like that the whole wing was haunted. Like they'd walk through to do their count, and count would always be off because they would swear they would see somebody in there that, you know, wasn't really in there. I don't know if it's bullshit or what, but I thought that was wild that I was in the same cell that Ted Bundy was in when he got executed.
So a lot of years passed between your first prison sentence and your second
16.
one. Is it weird being back in prison so many years later?
Yeah, and it's even weirder just because of how, you know, the difference between youthful offender and adult. And now I'm also like, damn, I let my family down, I let my mom down, I got, you know, my kid, like I let all these people down, and for what? For nothing really, because honestly I was an addict that was, even though I made some money and did some stuff, like it was all basically to fuel that addiction, you know what I mean? It was all for nothing, to tell you the truth. So like I didn't let all these people down, you know, for nothing. So that's hard to get over that. But I think once you do time though, like you could do time again, you know what I mean? Like as bad as it sucks, as much as you hate it, like once you got that out the way, like you're always going to survive. Like it might suck, but you're going to survive regardless. You know what I mean? You're going to be able to do it. So.
You think it's like riding a bike, like where that memory of just the habits, the everything.
Yeah, and plus you've already learned like the basic rules of like respect, the things not to do. You know what I mean? Like, and also to tell you the truth, like, that's a time when I became like it was necessary because now I'm drug free. My mind's clear. I'm reading all these books and I'm in that mind state for a while that lasted like a year after I got out too, where like there's nobody else that can control like how I feel and how I like you can't upset me. Like I'm in control of it. Now after about a year of me being out, now I'm like, I get upset about all types of things and like that's no longer the case. So there are some like big benefits to, being in that environment and, learning the things that you do in a shorter period of time and how intense it is. Like, there's some lessons that might take someone a lifetime to learn that you can learn in a couple of years in prison. You know what I mean? But
What were some of the differences, like prison politics wise, between 16 years before and then,
well, big because I would say like in the first one, it's a lot of kids. So like kids feel like they've got something to prove. I'm better than you. You know what I mean? Like there's just that kid mentality that when it's adults, they don't have that at all. You know what I mean? And you got people in here like with the youthful offender too. Even though there is some people that have life sentences, most of them are going to get out regardless. After 6 years at the latest. Whereas an adult prison, like these dudes got multiple life sentences. Especially if you're at like FSP, there's a lot of people that like were just on death row and then it got overturned. So now they're there with you and they're going to be there forever. They're never going to get out. So, there's a lot of difference, but mainly like just the mentality of like a kid and an adult. You know what I mean? It's such a big difference. I don't think you realize that till you're older. I think when you're 20, you think you know everything. When you're 40, you think you know everything. But when you're 60, you learn at 40 you didn't know shit. And probably the same thing when you turn 80, you realize at 60 you didn't know what you should know. So
well, you're always learning
Yeah.
as time goes on.
Yeah.
How old were you during this prison sentence?
This one,
Like early 40s?
well, I turned like 39, 40, 40, maybe 42 in there at that time. So yeah, early 40s. I think I turned actual 40 in there as well. But
How much time did you serve on that bed?
I think I probably got all my gain time, so I think it's 2 months a year. It's 85% is what you're doing in state prison. Now, after, and I don't know how I did it because I never went outside the gates. I never exercised my custody or anything like that. All I was the laundroman in the dorm. That, you know what I mean? Like when the clean clothes come in, I'd put them in the cubbies, and that's all I did. And I was hanging out all day on the tablet, listening to music. I had like, and what's wild is when Trump did those the stimulus checks, we found out that a lot of people are pissed off about it. They don't like this, but we were able to get those. So everybody in prison is getting all three of them or however many stimulus checks he got and all these thousands. And I blew every bit of it on music. So like,
It's a lot of music.
yeah, oh yeah, lots of it, lots. So like, did you guys have tablets and stuff in there?
No, they do have them now, but not when I was there.
Really?
This is
Yeah.
a lot newer.
So yeah, the
I got out
whole
before
tablet
COVID.
thing is wild too because like that was a constant battle between the staff and the inmates because that's the other thing in prison. Even the first time with kids, like these dudes are like MacGyver. Like you see people that can make something out of nothing and like come up with all these crazy inventions and stuff, and they're doing all these things to these radios. But with the tablets, they got these dudes, and these dudes are getting paid, bro. They're getting you take them their tablet, give them $300 on the Cash App, and what you'll do is, boom, you got your regular tablet, and you might go to the calculator app and put in a certain code, and bam, all of a sudden you've got Facebook, Cash App, you got all this porn stuff, like you've got access to everything, and that's the only way you can find it. But the cops were always, guards were always doing stuff to like counteract that, so it was like a constant thing. But it was wild though that there was people in there smart enough to, to do all that stuff. They called freaking the tablets. They were freaking these tablets and coming up with all types of crazy stuff. But yeah, it was wild. But I don't know. Yeah, there was a lot of differences between between the first time and it was mostly probably the mentality, but there's all this technology and stuff too, and I think, and then guards were much different. Like we had one of the dorms I was in, we'd have this guard that was from Georgia, and he would get on the microphone and say, "How about them dogs?" Whatever they say about the Georgia Bulldogs. And we knew when he said that the canines were coming on that compound. All of a sudden, you see everybody rushing to the bathroom and go put all their dope up their ass and hide their dope. You know
That's
what I
a
mean?
good guard right there.
He was awesome, man. Awesome. And there was actually a couple like that, but there was so flooded with dope. I mean, and because it was, at the COVID time, prices of everything tripled. And after I got out of the box under investigation at FSP, I stayed there for a little while. And then I guess when I first got there, I had signed up for faith-based. So I went to this faith-based camp, and you think, oh, that's sweet. That's nice. It'll be nice and calm. But that place was out of control. And that's really where I did most of the COVID at. But, man, you'd have all these dudes that were like, out where they work out, they got 200 cartons of cigarettes, and like one of my homeboys bringing in fucking 2 ounces of weed, 2 ounces of Molly, 2 ounces of meth, a whole bunch of cartons of cigarettes, all that. Like every week they're bringing all this dope. And of course, like I'm always, sorry, Mom, but I'm linked up with all these dudes that are doing shit, and like I could sew. So I was sewing like I'd make I could take a sweatshirt and like I would make full like sweatpants and all this shit for people, and I'm putting like YSL or Gucci and stitching it on there, and like, but I also had my bed where I could fucking undo it, and I got all this fucking dope and cartons of cigarettes and shit in there, and but it was wild. But what I was saying was, like, after a amount of time, I just found out one day that I was going to work release. And even though usually you got to go, outside the gate, work for all, you got to exercise your custody. I never did any of that. One day they just like, oh, you're going to work release. So my last year, I went to work release, which was really cool because now you're acclimated with society. I remember the first time when I got out, like, my buddy picked me up and my girl, and, like, I think we stopped at McDonald's. Like, I'm not going inside. Like, I didn't want to be, I was scared to be around people. I was just terrified. It was just such a weird, strange feeling. I just, so out of place. But after going to work release first, like, it gets rid of all that. And then I got out with, like, $15,000 that I had saved, you know what I mean? Like, working. So that was, nice to get out to have that. But, big difference between the two times.
Did that put you on a different path, going through work release, doing programs like that this last time in prison? Did it change your mindset?
It did. I mean,
Having
honestly,
money saved?
I would love to say that it did, but it was just another trap house, full of dope. People constantly getting sent back to prison. I was selling dope the whole time. Like, I don't know. I would love to be able to say something different. You know what I mean? And I think it changed my mind as far as like when I got out. I realized like I'm never doing like that. You realize that like that's prison shit. Like if I was to go back to prison today, I'd probably do whatever I got to do to survive. And I know how to survive. I'm gonna do it regardless. But that's prison shit. Like, I definitely real like I'm cool with work. Like before I don't want to work. Like I'm selling dope. I'm not doing like I hated the government. Like I hated like all that. Like I'm not like that no more. Like I love working. I don't want to go back.
So do you go from there then to Connecticut? Do you leave Florida?
The day that I EOS'd, my mom and my stepdad were there, and we drove straight up here. Straight up.
Was that their choice to remove you from Florida?
Yeah, they wanted to, and I think I was cool with it because I knew if I would have stayed in Florida, especially because like I said, when I was doing good selling dope at fucking out of my job, and at work release and all that. Like if I would have stayed there, yeah, I probably already been back. Honestly, they saved me. They definitely saved me.
Now, you're a grown man at that point. You're in your early 40s, right?
Yeah.
So how did that feel with your mom making decisions like that for you?
Well, I mean, obviously I could have made whatever decision I wanted to, but I would have felt bad. And that's a thing. She, the first bit she was there, the second bit she was really there. Like, I'm talking about, she's emailing me on the tablet every single day, taking whatever phone calls, coming to see me all the time, and she's coming from another state. You know what I mean? Like, she really went above and beyond. So I honestly I knew it, but at that time I realized, man, no matter what, there might be nobody in this world I can trust. I can trust my mom 100% regardless. Like, that's everything. Like, she really had my back and showed me that she had my back regardless what anybody else thought. Like, she was definitely there. And so I knew at that time, like, I got to make some, even though I might not want to come up here, like, I got to make whatever sacrifice she wants, I'm doing it. And I'm glad because I love it here. I love it here.
How important was changing your environment to change,
100%.
integral to changing your life?
100%. Without that, yeah, it would have just continued what I was already doing, because I was doing too good at work release, selling dope, to just completely be like, oh, stop that. You know what I mean? Because people would still be calling. I'd still be in that area. Coming up here changed everything. And like I said, I had a little bit of money, so it's not like I had to do it. I could, once I got a job, start working and all that. And they just showed me a lot of love and, made me realize a lot of things. And my grandma was like, was close to passing away at that time, and we knew it. She had Alzheimer's real bad, and like I would constantly go see her in New York at the place she was at, and that had a lot to do with it too, I would think. A lot to do with it. Because again, she just showed me unconditional love, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's hard. People, like, it's one thing, like, knowing me and like the things that I've done, but people will judge just, the tattoos and shit, like, I've got to try extra hard to gain people's respect and get them to like me, because people just judge you off rip.
Do you regret having the tattoos?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the one right here on my eye, I don't think I would have done, or maybe done something smaller or something, because it's like right in your face, you know what I mean? Like, and I can see how people react when they see it. So yeah, I think I wouldn't have done that, I don't think.
What's your life look like now?
Man, my life is extremely positive. I've got nothing but good vibes and so happy for everything to come. Like, I've got, my girlfriend is everything. Our kid is everything. My family, my job, like, everything is so smooth. That's why, like, moving up here and getting out of that environment was everything. And just being in this area and seeing, like, even just how the cops are compared to down there, like, man, I think in New Fairfield, I went like 6 months before I even saw a cop. And then when you do see them, it's like they got their lights on, like, their no sirens aren't on, but the lights are on the car. And like, God, they just let you know where they are. And it's like, and this area is great. I love it. Like, I love it here. And no, life is good. I feel very good. I have no ambition in, like, selling dope or, like, using drugs, anything like that. Like, I'm just trying to move forward, you know what I mean?
What's the biggest piece of advice you want people to take away from your story today?
I would just say, like, especially if you're young, that's the main thing for me is, like, I would love to be able to reach out and talk to you. That's, used to be my goal, was, like, to go around and do that. Like, people, young kids think that it has to be some type of way or have to act hard or tough or you're from these neighborhoods, but, man, you don't have to do none of that. You really don't. Like, make your mom happy, make yourself happy, because all you're doing is creating a hard life for yourself, and nobody has to live that life but you. You know what I mean? You're the only one that has to live. So whatever decisions you make, they're not affecting you only. They're affecting everybody around you. You know what I mean? Everybody goes through that same stuff with you. You might think it's only you. Oh, I'm the one, but that's not true. But you're the one that does ultimately have to deal with it. None of it's worth it. And there's other outlets, you know, whatever that might be, but instead of getting high and doing that, that ain't nothing but a downfall. And, you know, there's nothing good that's going to come from any of that, ever. It's just all bad news. I wish I could change all that stuff. I wish. I think about that all the time, like, you know, things I would change. Using drugs would be the main thing. You know, I'm happy about all the people I've met along the way, and, like, the people I met in prison, I love them and will always be my friends, but I hate having to have hurt my family, and just that addiction alone is hell. No matter how well you do on it or think you're doing on it, it's rough. It's really rough.
Well, Lee, I appreciate you coming on the show today, man.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. Like, I'm really, really happy to be able to talk to you. And thanks for letting me get it, because this is my therapy right here, straight up. For real.
Hey, that's the purpose of the show,
Yeah,
man.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I wish you the best in the future.
All right, you too, man. Thank you.